today. I am here with Ben Weakley. He is the Director of Programming for Mission Belonging, formerly Community Building Artworks. He is an accomplished poet and a U.S. Army veteran. I am so happy to have you here with me, Ben. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Mona. It's so wonderful to be here.
So, Ben, I start by asking everybody, I only knew you as a poet. I start by asking everybody, what did you think you were going to be when you were growing up?
That's that's a really wild story. I went to university at 17, and we talk to the kids about this a lot now. How we all got pushed into figure your path out, figure your major, figure out what
Yeah.
your career is going to be at 17 or 18, gosh, your little brain's not done knitting itself together till at least 25.
Right.
So a lot of life decisions get made before then, and I started out. I think I wanted to be a journalist, and then I wanted to write, and I might have wanted to be a lawyer at some point. And then I wanted to go into the army. I was one of those folks that saw 9/11, and I was in college and didn't know whether I was gonna enlist or stay in college. I stayed in college and did the ROTC thing and became an officer. But I wound up majoring in Latin American studies. I was taking a Portuguese class, and it wound up being the fastest path to a degree. I just wanted to get done and not do as much math as I wanted to avoid math. That was my biggest thing. So fast forward to graduation, commissioned as an Army officer, and what did the Army, in its infinite wisdom, decide that I should be? But an engineer officer. So I got plenty of spreadsheets, plenty of math, and lots of science and other fun stuff from that
Absolutely.
Latin American studies degree.
When did you pivot to poetry? Where did poetry come in?
So it's that's an interesting story too. I took a couple creative writing classes in college, and it was never really a thing I thought I would do as a vocation. I I wound up struggling really hard at about maybe the 12 or 13 year mark of my Army career. Um, Started struggling with some physical stuff and some of the mental fallout of deployments. Um, and and as I was getting help with PTSD and traumatic brain injury and things like that, I was lucky enough to get exposed to some really holistic treatment at a place called the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, the NICO at Fort Belvoir. If you can imagine this really like uptight, I called myself in hindsight this really wound tight ball of rage and pain. If you can imagine this really you uptight army officer going and getting acupuncture, um, and going and laying on the table and this is BS. I don't buy this. Pills um, and science. That's what works for me. And uh, you know, went in and there's the lady had studied extensively at a very legit Chinese medicine institute in San Francisco and really knew her stuff and stuck that needle right here in my ear and just everything kind of changed. So all that to say, in part of that process, one of my therapists recommended me to a poetry workshop for veterans and other like service members, kind of going through it at a place called the Torpedo Factory. Um, in Alexandria, Virginia, and that's where I met Community Building Artworks at the time, Mission Belonging now. And I was there with um, a bunch of other service members. So, it was a bunch of people like me in a sense, but not like me. So men, women, Air Force, Army, Navy, a Marine. Some people were combat vets, some people were not combat vets, some people were officers, some people were enlisted. But we weren't in uniform, and we were first name only, and we were, just people for an hour. And we got to write what we wanted to write and kind of say the thing that we couldn't otherwise say at home with our families or with our other friends or and that's was the first time I kind of reconnected to poetry. That was with a workshop led by your sister Seema, and I just started writing then. It became a thing that I needed to do. It's how I kind of figured myself out as I was transitioning from Army officer to what I was going to be next in the world.
When,
And
sorry,
that's the story. Yeah.
when did you know that you're actually really good at this?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm really good at it. I think um, I think I knew it was something I had to do because I took it seriously. I think that was I started entering some contests, and putting my poetry up for publication, just on a lark, and I won something right as I was retiring, and we were moving to Tennessee. And I remember getting a check in the mail, and it's poetry, so it's not much. We're talking about like $100.
But that's validating, right?
But it was validation. It was like
Yeah.
somebody likes this enough to pay for it, and that kind of made it different. It's not something I'm scratching in a journal. It's something that has worth in the world. Not to say that if you don't get paid for it, it's not worthwhile. I actually don't really publish a lot anymore, and um, don't certainly don't get paid much for that part of my life. But I think that was the point when I started taking it seriously. Um, and we tell people in workshops, really that that this is a practice for you, right? So I hope people realize that whether they're paid for it or not, it's accessible, and it's something that you don't need to show the world in order to take seriously, whether it's a craft thing or just something you're doing to explore yourself, what you really contain, and what you really have to say to the world, even if it never sees the light of day.
So I went to, yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, like my sister is the founder of Mission Belonging and Community Building Artworks. I went to my second event, which was the Day of Belonging,
Mm-hmm.
a few weeks ago. Like, was it a few weeks ago now?
Yeah, yeah.
And I accidentally walked into a room where Weitold was running a session with musical instruments.
Just the
And
ukuleles.
the ukuleles, and
Yeah.
I did not realize, like, I knew it, I guess, but I never thought about the fact that I have paid for so many music lessons, and I've bought violins and cellos and guitars, and I've driven people, and I've sat through concerts. I've never picked up an instrument in my life.
Ah,
I grew up with my mom, and I know, like, they were busy, they were working. I signed up
mhm.
for drum lessons, and she said, "Oh no, you have no talents. Don't worry about it. You're not doing that."
Oh,
And
oh.
so, and I accepted that, and it was fine. I did other things, but I was like, "Oh, I think I'm in the wrong room." And Wyatt Schultz said, "Oh, no, no, you're in the right room. Sit down." And I picked up a ukulele, and honestly, it never clicked for me how transformative it is to make art, to do something outside of your comfort zone, right?
Mm,
I've never thought of myself as a creative, But just tapping into that other part of what you're capable of, and what that part
Oh
of your
yeah.
brain to get it thinking about that, it was really really incredible. And for me, it drove home the work that you do at Mission Belonging, how valuable it is and how important it is. So tell me a little bit about when you went from being a participant to your current role at Mission Belonging.
Hmm. Yeah, so at some point, I forget exactly when, it might have been early 2021, SEMA asked me to host a workshop, to facilitate a workshop. Um, it was the Cohen Veteran Network workshop. So Cohen Veterans Network is it's the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic. There's a whole network of them across the country. They've been excellent partners of ours, particularly the clinic at Easter Seals in Maryland. And we partner. We at the time had just started partnering with them to host a virtual workshop, and SEMA asked if I would be the first facilitator and give it a shot. She had liked some of my writing and thought I might make a decent facilitator, and we tried it out, and it was wonderful. It's the most fun part of my job, honestly, and I'm just like really reflecting. I want to reflect on what you had to say about your experience at Day of Belonging, because that's I'm really glad you had that experience. It's really profound. We tell, like, in a writing context, in the poetry sense, we often say to participants in the room, a lot of our work is to undo what your worst high school English teacher did to you around poetry, right?
Yeah.
Um, because it is accessible in music and visual art. And um, I think it really is about having something that you do that isn't for money or for payoff or for return or even for somebody else. In my personal life, I tell my kids this all the time, like how important it is as an adult that you have a thing you do for no purpose other than just you enjoy it. And it doesn't pay you money. It doesn't make doesn't make your partner like you more. It doesn't make your friends think you're cool. You don't even have to tell anybody about it. You just do it, and it doesn't even have to make sense. You just do it because you like it. And that can be visual art, and it can be bad visual art.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter. It can be music. You can sing in the shower, and it can be completely tone deaf, but you get joy from it. And like to your point, you access a different part of yourself, and it does. You need that creativity as a lawyer. I'm sure you tap into that throughout your week. It makes you a better lawyer, a better parent, a better partner, a better friend, a better sibling. It
Yeah.
enhances every part of your life, just to work the muscle of creativity.
And the
Um,
stress relief, right? I think
yeah.
specifically as a veteran serving organization, a lot of what you had talked about. I was at a conference in LA, and it started with this opera singer leading us in this exercise where you kind of sing through, try to find your voice and you sing, and her, I guess, what she put forward to us was that there's no good singing and bad singing. This is a gift. We've
Yeah.
all been given this voice and this ability to hum and to sing because
Mm,
it calms our nerves, and it has this value
mm,
beyond selling records or being pleasant for other people to
yes.
listen to. And so there is that importance of when you're very stressed out, and it's kind of my private practice when nobody has to hear me sing, to just, it's very stressful, just take a moment and hum or sing, and it calms your nerves. It does something for your limbic system.
I
And
love that.
and you guys have
Yeah.
tapped into that so exceptionally well. Your director role, you
Hmm.
are involved in planned giving, you're involved in
Hmm.
fundraising,
Mhm.
for mission belonging. How have the cuts to grants for the arts have they impacted mission belonging?
So they have, and our story around that is certainly one that is both parallel to a lot of organizations this year, and also and also different, candidly. So we have lost some federal funding, and we've retained some federal funding. We're also really fortunate that I think going into this year, it's been one of our desires, like a lot of nonprofits, to diversify our funding streams. So we've always had that intention. We're still a fairly young nonprofit. We haven't hit the 10-year mark. We're still growing. Um, so there's a lot of work to be done around diversifying funding streams and not being just dependent on government funding. But that this year really was a shock to the system in that respect. And I can say one of the things, we can never really get away from government funding. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be a need. Um, but we're so grateful for a lot of our major donors, and a lot of our individual donors. Our supporters really are a community. And I think one of the things we've gotten right is relationships. So having the relationships that we have and building them with our donors, and I say donors, I kind of hesitate to even use that word because they're not donors to us. They're community members. Donors sort of implies you write a check and that's sort of your role, and somebody puts a thank you note in the mail, and I'll talk to you next year when it's time to get you to open the checkbook again. I don't I don't think we see it that way. It's a lot more of a community where there is this whole person. We knew we were vulnerable to losing federal funding, and when it happened, we were able to turn to our network and say, not just, we need additional funding to close the gap, but there are lots of needs here in this circumstance, and who can help and how, and let's start a conversation. And the response has been overwhelming. Um, so some of our closest supporters stepped up with um, you much increased funding from last year. Uh, some of our closest supporters have also gotten into conversations with us about, hey, we probably need to start talking to some of the other people in our network about your work. Who do we know? Let's have a conversation about who we know that also needs to hear about mission belonging. And that's been incredibly helpful. Just getting more exposure to more people that need to be invited in, who want to support this work, because it's really more, um, it's more than a commercial transaction to ask for and receive philanthropic support from someone.
Yeah,
It's really like an exchange of values. You're really forming that kind of relationship. It's not transactional. You're saying, I affirm the work that this organization is doing, and um, we're opening ourselves up and being vulnerable to receive the help, um, because we do need external support, and we're inviting them in. So
absolutely.
it's yeah.
And now mission belonging has gone beyond the military community, but it really did start with veterans. And I think we talk about that support and supporting it financially. When you say thank you for your service, right? And we are also grateful, right? We say thank you for your service. how do you put your money where your mouth is? Because when people come back, there is a gap. No matter how hard we try or what the VA does, they do good work, but there's a gap. And how do we, as citizens who have not served, how do we fill that gap? How do we step up and
Mm,
help our fellow, brothers
mm,
and sisters who did serve and and we say it, we thank you. How do we thank you? How do we put our money where our mouths are? We talk about tax. There's this, I say loose because it's, people love to say deductible. Everything's not deductible. But there's this kind of overarching idea that I make donations so I don't have to pay taxes. But, and if you think of it in that way, right, what you are donating to, that's where your tax dollars are going because you're not paying the
mm,
tax money. But the reason you get the deduction, the thinking behind it is you are benefiting the country. You're donating towards something that's providing a public good. So now the government doesn't have to fund that because
mhm,
these dollars that would have been tax dollars are now donation dollars. And after the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, I think one of the things a lot of small organizations saw when people realized that if you are a filer who takes the standard deduction, meaning you're not itemizing, you no longer have those over the line deductions. So your
sure.
$20, your $40, it's not going to be deductible. One of the opportunities, I think, for both for donors and for nonprofits in the coming year in 2026 is the one big beautiful bill, the OBA, brings back that over the line deduction. For not a huge amount. It's like I think $1,000 for single
Mhm,
filers, 2,000 for a married couple, but it's something, right? That $2,000 is money that you can
mhm,
deduct and not have to pay in taxes, or it
mhm,
reduces your tax. And then same for corporations. There are opportunities there that you can decide where you want your hard-earned money to go
mhm.
to a greater extent than we've been able to since 2017.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity, I think, to educate the giving public. I think a lot of people who were donors at a certain level stayed donors even after Tax Cut and Jobs. But we
Yeah,
do know, I mean, the trends are clear: dollars up, donors down, right? The philanthropic giving has been increasingly concentrated uh, in the hands of fewer and fewer individuals. So the giving at lower levels, at that $1,000 and $2,000 per year level, those households are giving at smaller rates, or at those households are giving less frequently since Tax Cut and Jobs, especially since I think it was the 600 and the 1200 emergency kind of
yeah,
measure in COVID,
right.
especially since that went away. So I think it's a really wonderful opportunity to encourage um, you know average American households to get back in the game. I think a lot of households didn't leave because they were connected emotionally
Yeah,
and morally and value wise with a nonprofit, or more than one nonprofit. A lot of that is community, a lot of that is church, a lot of that is, it shows up in different ways for different people. um, but I think for nonprofits, on the nonprofit side, we've got to understand that when you start from a place of connection and relationship,
yeah,
everything builds from there, and you're resilient to changes in tax code. But on the flip side of that, we've also got to do a better job of talking to our community members and talking to the people who want to support us, and let them know what the most efficient ways are to support us, and how they can benefit from supporting us, especially with changes in tax code coming up.
and
And I do want to add
yeah,
$1,000 in the game of nonprofit um, support, in the game of development. Sometimes we get wrapped up in this term of major giving, and I use it too. It's
Yeah.
the term of art. What is a major gift? And we, especially in like university context, sometimes we start thinking 25,000, fifty
Right.
thousand. Um, for an organization like Mission Belonging, $1,000 is a major donation. So if you sign, you get on the line for, a recurring donation of $83 a month. That's a really big deal for an organization our size that runs on, about $600,000 of revenue a year. Um, a few more $1,000 donors, a few more $2,000 donors is game changing for what we do.
Sure.
So not every nonprofit also is the size of Wounded Warrior Project or American Red Cross, where $1,000 donation, is one in a sea of many.
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of a point to be understood too, is for those who want to make a difference, you can make a little difference in a very large organization. Sometimes I think you can make a very outsized difference in a smaller organization, and that connection is there. You can really meet and see and know the people you're serving, not only the staff, but really connect to the participants, the beneficiaries of your support.
Absolutely. And you've talked about if there's $100,000 funding gap from a grant that's been lost, 50 families at 2,000 each who maybe are discrete new donors who haven't been
Hmm.
donating but want to take advantage of the deduction can fill that gap at one fundraiser, one event at someone's
Hmm.
home, saying, "Hey guys, love this organization, please donate." And itemized, I mean,
Absolutely.
you
Hmm.
can go beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, not to, I guess we could get kind of geeky on this, but if you take the 2000, and I mean, let's say what you're at 21% as a tax bracket, is it 21 or 22?
For
What
what?
does that wind up being? What does that wind up being? That winds up saving you. Um,
Oh,
I mean,
you're getting in the
you're
weeds.
basically, I mean, you're basically only paying something like $1,600 for that donation, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
So if you want to look at like what you're going to get on the tax break, right?
Yeah.
Um, and this may be a part you want to edit out too. I don't
This is
know,
not advice. Yeah.
because this is nerd stuff. But one way, I mean, I look at it sometimes this way when in my own giving, like
Right.
in household stuff, like in that COVID era, if I give $600, and I can write that off, if I'm going to pay taxes on my income at a 20% tax
Right.
bracket, I forget which bracket I wind up in. Um, but I do 20% of that 600 that I'm going to take off of my income. That's I'm foregoing having to pay 20% on that 600.
Yeah.
So that amount of savings means that instead of paying 600, I actually only paid 600 less the 20% in taxes that I saved.
Yeah. And I think that's important, right? It's not a credit, it's a deduction.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you go through that and go through that exercise, but it's a lot better than going to your accountant with all your receipts and he or
Hmm.
she saying to you, none of that matters. You don't itemize.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just feels better. I think more than the money, the idea that this is where these dollars are going and not everybody has some disagreement with some of the ways our money is spent by our federal government
Yeah.
and our state government, and but it's never an excuse to not pay your taxes. You got to pay those taxes whether you
Yeah.
like the reason what they're doing with your money or not. this is the government giving you back a little bit of autonomy
Hmm.
over what you're going to do with that money. And so why not take advantage of that opportunity and put that money towards causes that are close to your heart and things that mean a lot to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you can, it's hard to see a government program sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see. I mean, we all understand that when you get on the interstate, I know my federal tax dollars pay for the upkeep of that interstate. I think we all, but it's easy to take that for granted.
Sure.
And it's a big federal budget. It's very hard to see my dollar go pass through that. It's a lot easier to see my dollar pass through a local nonprofit that is, providing arts to the community. It's providing mental health services to the community. That's providing substance abuse and addiction services to the community. It's very easy to see where your philanthropic dollar is going. And the other part of that is you know, the staff, the volunteers, the development professionals are accessible. You'll be able to connect to what you're doing. You'll be able to volunteer. And this is all, there's good science behind what happens to us chemically, neurologically, in our bodies and brains when we give, when we do good things for other human beings.
Talk
So
about that a little bit, Ben.
yeah, so we know that when we give, um, whether it's volunteering, whether it's giving money to a cause we enjoy, um, we know that it makes us happier. So it's sparking those oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine. It's hitting those chemicals, those brain chemicals um, that we that we know produce a happier, better regulated state in our brain, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's it's good for us to do now, not in a I wrote a check to make you go away sense,
Right.
but again, relationship and connection, right? I know my dollar is going to help someone that I need to see helped. I want to see helped. A cause that matters to me. So, for example, I'm a veteran and I want to help other veterans, or my father's a veteran and I want to honor his service by helping other veterans. That emotional connection will make me feel good when I take the action of supporting my veterans organization. Um, Take that a little bit further. You'd mentioned planned giving earlier.
Yeah.
Um, the parts of our brain, there's a whole bunch of research done by Dr. Russell James. I think it's at Texas Tech. And we can link to this too. It's all kind of publicly available. A whole bunch of research that basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, it says that when you get somebody thinking about legacy and what happens after I'm gone, um, and having those kind of conversations um, with their estate, with their uh, giving after I'm gone,
Yeah.
it activates the same parts of our brain that it does, when we're hearing a story, when we're hearing kind of like a kind of that hero's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it that way, donors who are people who are givers that are thinking about legacy giving, that are thinking about planned giving, are really like telling a story about themselves in
Yeah.
future tense. Um, and so, there's a sense in which um, we're able as a community of professionals to kind of help people, at whatever stage they are of that kind of planning, um, to really look through what that journey looks like and think about, um, how do I feel good about what I leave behind, but have that feeling now before the
Absolutely.
end.
And so, one of the other things we had talked about was in my profession, right, with estate planning, business planning, all of it, there's a place where people get stuck. There's two places. One is guardianship of your children. Everyone's stuck. It's hard to
Hmm.
agree because your brain doesn't want to go there. And the other is something called takers of last resort. And
Hmm.
that means if everyone everyone is your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, all your descendants are out, same accident, a common
Hmm.
disaster, who would you want to inherit? And people really struggle with this, and I think the same thing. Your brain doesn't want to go there. And
Hmm.
so you start, some options are, half to my nieces and nephews, half to my husband's nieces and nephews, to my siblings and their descendants. And even as you can imagine with that, there's a lot of disagreement.
Hmm.
Charities are a great taker of last resort, and sometimes they do benefit from that, right? I had
Hmm.
a nonprofit who received a donation from someone that had never interacted with them, that they did not know at all. It was a small organization that received $1 million donation and
Hmm.
then a continuing gift for the next 20 years from a complete stranger.
Hmm.
You know, and what an amazing gift that their organization, something about it must have resonated with them. And they put this in there, and they were in a situation where they were the ultimate beneficiary.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, yes, the organization may never see that money. But one of the things you had said to me before is we would love to know, even if we never see that money, we would love to know that you thought of us when you
Yes.
were doing your estate planning. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a couple of different lenses on that, right? Like one is I think there's a piece of this that's almost like morale and almost like spiritual, right? Like we run a Slack channel. We're a very virtual organization, so we talk all day in real time on Slack. And sometimes it's not the gift, it's not the money itself coming in, it's what the donor says. It's what it means, right? Like, um, that I can say to the rest of the team, and it boosts everyone. You know, people people who aren't interfacing with our donors love hearing, hey, this person thought of you, even if it's like a $10 thing, but it came with a statement, you know, sometimes the statement lifts everybody on the staff up more than, the money may be nominal, right? Um, so even if it is, um, a very conditional item in an estate and the nonprofit doesn't see it, um, that nonprofit may really benefit just from knowing that their work impacts someone that much. That is a very Nonprofits are tough work.
Yeah.
This is a place where there are dark days sometimes, and you got to dig deep to find the motivation to keep going. And so some days it's a matter of the universe sends you somebody, that gives you an attaboy, an attagirl, and that's what you needed to hear to keep going that week. So from that end, please tell your nonprofit that you supported them that way, even if it's not about the money, even if it's taker of last resort situation, and it may not actually benefit them. They'll want to hear it. They'll appreciate it, I promise. The other piece is, uh, don't wait until you're gone,
Yeah.
because I mean, thinking through this is, it's not just, oftentimes I think we get hung up on the death part, right? The big scary D word.
Yeah.
Um, and the more productive, and I think this is really where it gets at like the spiritual part of these conversations, and where being an estate planner or a financial planner or a philanthropic planner can be really spiritual work sometimes, is
Absolutely.
shepherding somebody through the conversation beyond like, okay, you're going to die, where your assets going to go, but really to more like, okay, where your assets go says something about your values. What did your life stand for? And if a
Right.
little bit of your life stood for this cause, do you want to wait till the end to see it? Do you want to wait? Maybe, um, and maybe it doesn't even have to be a financial thing. Maybe if you naming that cause, the taker of last resort, sparks something in you, and it's that case where it's the cause and you're not really even familiar with the nonprofit, maybe that's the first step. You'd like to go volunteer, um, and find out a little bit more about the real work being done.
Or your
Um,
beneficiaries, right? They see that and they
yeah,
think, well, this meant a lot to dad. Let's find out more
absolutely.
about this.
And it can be an education part, intergenerationally, right? It can be about establishing and passing down, what did we stand for as a
Yeah.
family? What are our values? It can start all of these beautiful conversations about what is it that we stand for in the world? What do we want to have meant? What do we want to mean now?
Yeah.
And what do we want to bring into the world that's not here? It can be a really beautiful, transformative thing, and it all starts with these kind of conversations around, okay, when I'm gone, where does this stuff go? Um,
Yeah.
and it's a little sneaky like that sometimes, but it can reveal like, oh, and often it's narrative too, right? I may have a story around, I grew up a certain way, there's maybe a rags to riches story,
Yeah.
or my parents suffered some kind of injustice and I want to see that injustice reversed. Like there's all kinds of different ways into this, but it's very personal to each of us. Um, but I think, yeah, it can be a very beautiful way to get into legacy conversation and
Absolutely. And
have
I think,
that now. Yeah.
yeah, and I think with estate planning generally, right? Like there's this fear around it, and it seems so transactional, and it
Hmm.
really should not be. You're absolutely
No,
right. The time is
no.
it's people ask me, my sister mainly, that do you really read the will? Like, is there going to be like you call everybody and you read it out loud? I've never done that ever, and it should not be that kind of a surprise. Like
Hmm.
all of that is fictionalized. But what really should not be the case is that everything is this huge surprise.
Yeah.
This is a family decision. These are family things that are going to happen. And if we can, as advisors, can facilitate having those discussions in a way that is productive and beneficial,
Hmm.
and the biggest value, it's not tax savings, it's not any of that. It's that if we can minimize the hurt feelings and
Yeah.
misunderstandings when you're not there to smooth it over by having those discussions now, that's the real value, right? That's the
Yes.
real legacy, is that your kids will still be sitting around the table together at Thanksgiving years from now, because there aren't all of these hurt feelings around things that they had no idea were going to happen.
Yes. Yes. I couldn't agree with that more. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you're exactly right. Having the conversation now, um, and having it among the family, right? Having it among the people
Yeah.
closest to you. And if you're going to name a nonprofit in in the estate, having the conversation with the nonprofit as well, um, and introducing that to your family, introducing that as part of the plan, is always best. I think I read somewhere, um, something like only 50% of nonprofits that are beneficiaries in estate plans, are made aware of it during the life of the estate plan.
Yeah.
Or I forget exactly how to say that, but basically before death.
Before death, right?
Um, so the upside, I mean, from a nonprofit perspective, of course, we want to know because, it helps us plan for if we get this, um, large, injection of capital, what are we going to do with it? And, are there conditions? Does the, does the person want it to go to a certain program? Does that we can help, develop that? But really, I think a lot of it has the benefit on the individual side. A lot of it has to do with, that piece right there is setting expectations, having instead of a complicated conversation when you're not there,
Yeah.
um, and it's a bad time to begin with. Feelings are already high, um, and complication is the last thing you want. Surprises are the last thing you want when grief is the order of the day.
Yeah.
Um, but instead, looking at it as an opportunity to let your family know this part about you, let them know this piece of you, and introduce your family to that aspect of you. Um, it can be a really beautiful benefit and bring everybody closer together.
I think so. I think so. Any last thoughts on any of it? Charitable giving, mission belonging. You want to tell us anything that's coming up? Do you have any events, any fundraising drives coming up?
So we will be, couple big things. One, we are, I didn't get to mention earlier. One, we, are really really excited, in unveiling, some research that we've been doing. One, um, we have long kind of been very interested in this connection between loneliness and mental health, loneliness and veteran suicide. So we were very fortunate to get a, Parker Fox grant, from the VA, to run one of our programs, and through that, we've been very very fortunate to get some research assistance, from Kennesaw State University, and the Uniform Services, University of Health Sciences. So we've been able to do, IRB quality, IRB approved, rigorous, research on our program's mental health outcomes, and we're really excited to say that, um, our programs have shown a statistically significant reduction in suicidality
Wow.
among participants. That got announced, at Day of Belonging, and we're seeking more support, to continue the research, and really build that out so we can continue discovering, you know, why is it that what we're doing, bringing people in together in community, around art and expression, why is it that that makes people less lonely and reduces suicidality, and how we can do it better, and then how we can spread that, to other communities of practice, so we can ultimately make the world a little less lonely and a little better place. So that's one thing. And yes, at the end of year, we will be seeking our kind of end of year fundraiser. We do it every year, and we'll be looking this year to do a fundraising drive around. We always have a very generous donor who puts up a $50,000 matching fund. So we're seeking a $50,000 match, not a single $50,000 match. We're seeking donations to come in. We'll be launching that in November. Always seeking support, but you can find us on our social media, sign up for our newsletter, and find out more about us and learn how you can support our drive and get your support matched 2 to 1.
Absolutely.
And that'll be running November and December.
Great. And if you could send me the links, we'll link all of it, all of
Yep.
those different things for people who want to dig a little deeper and see the research on all of it, because I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of people would agree. And so we'd love to see it. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing what's next for Mission Belonging.
Well, thanks so much, Mona. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful conversation. Love to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.